Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray back with you again for another episode of Back to Basics. We're continuing to cover old school gaming, specifically basic fantasy role-playing game. Again, you can get this on Drive-Thru RPG. I'm going to put a link in the description, but actually I've been blessed to become a part of their affiliate program. So if you'd like to help me out by clicking on my link in the description to then go to the basicfantasy.org purchase that you can make on Drive-Thru RPG or any other role-playing game products, tabletop role-playing game products that you might want to download. I would really appreciate that. It would help me to continue to get things to cover here for the old school channel that we've got going on here. So take a look at those links there as well. Also, you can take a look at the other links that are there as always. You can buy me a coffee. You can go to a PayPal tip jar, those kinds of things. And please, as you know, for the YouTube community, click the like, click the subscribe, click that bell icon. That helps out. The algorithm helps to grow the channel. And thanks again a lot for all of you who have subscribed and all of you who have been commenting along all of this time. It is a great community to be a part of. Again, a great shout out to Rob's Game Group and his channel. I have links to his channel in some of my other videos. I'll try to remember to include it in this one as well. But check out his channel. He's just a great guy. He's got a lot of good things that go along with things that I'm saying too, and I go along with things that he's saying as well. We're a couple of old grognard gamers. And again, as he and I both always say, hey, this is what we prefer. This is how we play. But ultimately, it is about playing the way that is the most fun for you and your group. And this is my opinion on how to do that. Thus, the name of the channel, Back to Basics, is how I think is, in my opinion, the best way to play Dungeons & Dragons and old school gaming in general. But again, if it's not your way to do that, hey, you guys play, you guys have fun in whatever way it is that you do that. All right? So now that we've got that stuff out of the way, I'm going to return back to reading through Basic Fantasy RPG book here, 3rd edition by Chris Gonnerman and his group. Again, a wonderful system to use, a wonderful book to use. And we're going to start on page 7. If you open up your PDF or if you have your physical copy of your book, I'll be reading through the character classes here for us, and we'll take a look at some of the things here that reflect back on even BX time period. So we're going to start with clerics. So you see at the top of the page there on the left-hand side in that column, you have the clerics experience point table giving that they used 1d6 for hit dice. The experience goes from 0, of course, to 1,170,000. That they use 1d6 for hit dice. That's definitely retro old school. And actually, a first level cleric gets no spells. In particular, if you go to the Basic Fantasy .org website, there's a bunch of stuff in the download section, and one of those is 0 level spells as an option. I run that with me and my family. It's a really cool way to add that addition to it, but certainly you do not have to have any spell-like abilities for your casters whatsoever. I played back in the day where we didn't have a spell, and so that's just kind of how we started out. We were kind of a poorer excuse of a fighter back in the day when we were a first level cleric, and then we rose up from there. But if you wanted to know about religion or you wanted to know about binding wounds and stuff like that, you went to the clerics. So here we go. Clerics are those who have devoted themselves to the service of a deity, pantheon, or other belief system. Most clerics spend their time in mundane forms of service, such as preaching and ministering in a temple. But there are those who are called to go abroad from the temple and serve their deity in a more direct way, smiting undead monsters and aiding in the battle against evil and chaos. Lawful or player character clerics are assumed to be among the latter group. Clerics fight about as well as thieves, but not as well as fighters. They are hardier than thieves, at least at lower levels, as they are accustomed to physical labor that the thief would deftly avoid. Clerics can cast spells of divine nature starting at 2nd level, and they have the power to turn the undead, that is, to drive away undead monsters by means of faith alone. See the encounter section for details. The prime requisite for clerics is wisdom. A character must have a wisdom score of 9 or higher to become a cleric. They may wear any armor, but may only use blunt weapons, specifically including warhammer, mace, maul, club, quarterstaff, and sling. Now again, that is a throwback to BX. BX clerics did not use anything but blunt weapons. And that was a tenet of their faith. If you actually look in the example, both the examples of play in the basic Mold Day Basic book, you will discover that one of the characters wanted to slaughter one of the downed enemies, and one of the other persons of faith actually said that they were not going to do that, and told them that they could, in fact, I think the book directs that you could, in fact, refuse to heal the person if they were to act like that with their character, and you would be justified in doing so. And so I think this idea of using blunt weapons as well is that same level of justification. But again, depending on if you play with a particular pantheon of gods where your deity for your particular cleric might allow edged weapons or even ranged weapons that have a point, for example, all those would be allowable if that's how you play in your game. So that's pretty much the Cleric in a nutshell. Again, basic fantasy role-playing game is very rules light version of the game. It doesn't put a lot on you. Instead, it gives the GMs a lot of fiat. And the GM, in other words, can give you the opportunity and will rule accordingly that whatever you want to try, you can try to do. So we don't want to have a 658-page rule book to be able to accommodate everything that the players and GM might try to think up to be able to do. We want to just be able to play the game and enjoy it together, and that's the way you do that with basic fantasy. All right, so on the right-hand column on page 7, you have Fighter. Again, experience point table, level 1 at 0, level 20 at 1,560,000. Fighters use 1d8 at hit dice. Fighters include soldiers, guardsmen, barbarian warriors, and anyone else for whom fighting is a way of life. They train in combat, and they generally approach problems head-on, weapon drawn. Not surprisingly, fighters are best at fighting of all of the classes. They are also the hardiest, able to take more punishment than any other class, although they are not skilled in the ways of magic. Fighters can nonetheless use magic items, including but not limited to magical weapons and armor. The prime requisite for fighters is strength. A character must have a strength score of 9 or higher to become a fighter. Members of this class may wear any armor and use any weapon. So if you want to be the guy that runs in and takes down the monster or whatever, fighter is your way to go to get the full-on benefits of all of that. And if you happen to pick up the combat options supplement that's in the downloads section, for example, then you have the opportunity to be the only one who will specialize in any weapon ever. And there's even a rules light version of specialization in one of those download pages as well, if that's something that you would want to use. I use it with my kids when I run them as well, because it's very unencumbersome, and it's very, very easy to do. It's not at all overpowering, but you take a look at it and decide what you want to do yourself. But you should check out all those different supplements that are there. Next, we move on to Magic User on page 8. Magic User, again, experience first level 0, 20th level 1,950,000. Again, that dreaded 1d4 for hit dice. And at first level, you get 1 spell. Magic users are those who seek and use knowledge of the arcane. They do magic not as the cleric does, by faith in a greater power, but rather through insight and understanding. Magic users are the worst of all the classes at fighting. Hours spent studying massive tomes of magic do not lead a character to become strong or adept with weapons. They are the least hardy, equal to thieves at lower levels, but quickly falling behind. The prime requisite for magic users is intelligence. A character must have an intelligence score of 9 or higher to become a magic user. The only weapons they become proficient with are the dagger and the walking staff or cudgel. Magic users may not wear any armor of any sort, nor use a shield, as such things interfere with spellcasting. A first level magic user begins play knowing read magic and 1 other spell of first level. These spells are written in a spellbook provided by his or her master. The GM may roll for the spell, assign it as he or she sees fit, or allow the player to choose it at his or her option. See the spells section for more details. Again, there are supplements out there where you could add on 0 level spells. There's also a supplement out there which lets you do some unique things with magic. If you like the idea of a sorcerer, for example, from 5th edition, or if you like the idea of that from Pathfinder, for example, those kinds of things. There are supplements out there to look at for that. There's even some discussion later in one of those supplements which will talk about how you can deal with the possibility of magic users being able to have armor and cast, or just have armor and not cast, and whether or not you have them use a walking staff versus a quarterstaff. So there's a bunch of different variants in it. Again, it's all variants that is rules light. So again, check out that downloads page. It's huge. It's got just a bunch of cool stuff. And of course, everything that Basic Fantasy has put out is always on there. All right, moving on to Thief on that right-hand column on page 8. Thief starts out level 10, of course, level 20, 975,000. So already you can see that almost 1 million experience points differentiate the 20th level magic user from the 20th level thief. So that's where that quickly getting outpaced in the D4s for hit dice, which thieves also have, was talked about in the magic user. So thieves are going to get those hit dice a lot faster there really soon. Thieves are those who take what they want or need by stealth, disarming traps, and picking locks to get to the gold they crave, or borrowing money from pockets, belt pouches, etc., right under the nose of the mark without the victim ever knowing. Thieves fight better than magic users, but not as well as fighters. Avoidance of honest work leads thieves to be less hardy than the other classes, though they do pull ahead of the magic users at higher levels. I like that. That the avoidance of honest work. That's just really funny that they put that in there. The prerequisite for thieves is dexterity. A character must have a dexterity score of 9 or higher to become a thief. They may use any weapon, but may not wear metal armor as it interferes with stealthy activities, nor may they use shields of any sort. Leather armor is acceptable, however. Thieves have a number of special abilities described below. 1 turn must generally be spent to use any of these abilities, though the GM may amend this as he or she sees fit. The GM may choose to make any of these rolls on behalf of the player at his or her option to help maintain the proper state of uncertainty. I know we did that a lot too, and that could be a bit cumbersome on a game master, but I think it's valuable to do because you wouldn't know how well you're sneaking or how well you're hiding, and those types of things. You wouldn't know whether you found a trap or not, those types of things, without the GM telling you that, and I think that's important, or without the monsters telling you that they see you or that they hear you. So I think there's some of those roles that need to take place behind the screen. And not to take away the dice from the players, because using the dice is just a huge fun part of the game as well, of course. But there are some things that proper state of uncertainty needs to remain there, and I think this is one of those places. Also note that the GM may apply situational adjustments, plus or minus percentage points, as he or she sees fit. For instance, it's obviously harder to climb a wall slick with slime than one that is dry, so the GM might apply a penalty of 20% for the slimy wall. And on page 9, you have the entire page dedicated to thief abilities. So these are all the standard thief abilities, although they're named somewhat different than you might see them in, like, for example, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition Player's Handbook, 2nd Edition, those types of things. But it is open locks, remove traps, pickpockets, move silent, climb walls, hide, and listen. So open locks allows the thief to unlock a lock without a proper key. It may only be tried once per lock. If the attempt fails, the thief must wait until he or she has gained another level of experience before trying again. Again, if your game is such that, hey, they tried the first time, they couldn't make it, they switch out some thieves' tools and they try it a second time and they can't make it, and then they're done, or if they just try it one time and they have to make a level before they can do it again, or they can just try an infinite amount of times, and as long as they don't roll a really low percentile number, say from like 0, 1 to 0.5 or something, they don't break their tools. However you want to house rule that, this system is very open for that particular thing. I do the let them try the first time. If they fail, I let them try a second time, and then that's it. But it's whatever works for you. Remove traps is generally rolled twice. First to detect the trap, and second to disarm it. That's why you notice it doesn't say find and remove traps, which was a later thing that was added on. This is just remove traps that he and his team use here. It's first to detect and then to disarm. I don't do that. I let them make one roll, and then if they find it, they can also remove it. But that's again a house rule. It's up to you how you want to do that. The GM will make these rolls as a player won't know for sure if the character is successful or not until someone actually tests the trap or suspected area. Again, that's just like the idea of potions, right? Because in this system, there's no real clear way to use magic to necessarily identify every one of the items. There is an addendum that they have on the downloads page that gives you a spell called Analyze Magic where you can actually try to do something like that. I don't believe I've seen an identify spell. If someone has it in their copy, you might want to just let me know in the comments that I missed that. When you have potions, for example, you just pop the cork and you just take a sip and see what happens. And I think that's a really cool part of the game. You take out the sword, you swing it around, and you see what happens. Those types of things. I just think that's a really cool part of the game that's maybe lost as well. And then just kind of the easy identify. But again, if it's more complicated for you as a game master to draw all that stuff out, then you can just tell your players what it is and move on. It's fine. Okay. Pickpockets allows the thief to lift the wallet, cut the purse, etc. of a victim without the victim noticing. Obviously, if the roll is failed, the thief didn't get what he or she wanted. But further, the intended victim, or an onlooker at the GM's option, will notice the attempt if the die roll is more than 2 times the target number, or if the die roll is 100. So Pickpocket starts out at 30 at first level, and if you use any of the supplementary downloadable material, that could be 40%, even 45%, depending on race and armor use and those types of things. Maybe even 50% at first level. So getting noticed here could be a little more difficult than is written here, but there's definitely still an easy option to be caught, and no thieving skill goes above 100%, period. That's an old school throwback. So no matter what your pluses are, it'll never go above 99. So 100 will automatically always fail. I like the idea that there's some level of failure no matter how good you are, because no one's perfect, right? Move silent, like remove traps, is always rolled by the GM. The thief will usually believe he or she is moving silently regardless of the die roll, but those he or she is trying to avoid will hear the thief if the roll is failed. Climb walls permits the thief to climb sheer surfaces with few or no visible handholds. This ability should normally be rolled by the player. If the roll fails, the thief falls from about halfway up the wall or other vertical surface. The GM may require multiple rolls if the distance climbed is more than 100 feet. So the good news about that is if it's 99 feet or less, you only got to make one roll, and that's kind of good, right? If you had to roll every 25, 30 feet, every 50 feet, and that's on you as a GM to decide how you want to do that. But this could be a benefit for your players. They could climb some pretty decent heights before they'd really have to roll again. Hide permits the thief to hide in any shadowed area large enough to contain his or her body. Like move silently, the thief always believes he or she is being successful, so the GM makes the roll. A thief hiding in shadows must remain still for this ability to work. Listen is generally used to listen at a door or to try to listen for distant sounds in a dungeon. The GM must decide what noises the thief might hear. A successful roll means only that a noise could have been heard. The GM should always make their roll for the player. Note that the thief and his or her party must try to be quiet in order for the thief to use this ability. And there's a thing that everyone can do in basic fantasy RPG if you're a human. I believe if you're only just any race other than elf, you have a 1 in 1d6 chance to just hear something, like as kind of like a perception roll in 5th edition, if you will, or a perception roll in Pathfinder 2nd edition, if you will, something like that. So that's 1 in 6. If you're an elf, I believe it's 1 to 2 in 6. I don't know if the other races actually adjust that. I won't flip back there right now to figure that out. The page turning makes a lot of noise on the video. Sorry about that. Then this gives you the option as a thief character to be able to have a 30% at first level chance to listen. Of course, adjusted by what you might download as supplements to add to that. And so the question will always come up, well, do I roll the D6 listen or do I roll the thief skill listen? And the way I run it is very simple as a house rule. You get both. So as a thief, you have an extra bonus. In other words, you get to roll more than one time. And as your thief listen, you are especially acutely trained in circumstances to listen in such a way as if you make it with your thief listen, you would hear something beyond what a standard character would hear as their quote-unquote perception on a D6 type of listen roll might be. That's the way I house rule it. again, that's entirely up to you as how you run your game. Finally, thieves can perform a sneak attack anytime they are behind an opponent in melee, and it is reasonably likely the opponent doesn't know the thief is there. I like how that's incredibly vague, because depending on how the player character describes what they're doing and where they're going and how they're getting there, it gives a wonderful amount of narrative element to add to the fact that the thief gets to get in position, and the game master lets them have the ability to do that, so that the thief can then pounce out and really get this cool ability that they have here. The GM may require a move silently or hide roll to determine this. The sneak attack is made with a +4 attack bonus and does double damage if it's successful. Normally, an attack from behind is a +2. Thieves get a +4. And then it does double damage if it's successful. A thief usually can't make a sneak attack on the same opponent twice in any combat. Now notice the vagueness again. Usually can't make a sneak attack on the same opponent twice in any given combat, right? Usually. So again, play that up and have fun with that however you want to interpret that rule in your game. And then the double damage. Specifically, having read on their forum, double damage literally means like it used to mean in old school, which is you roll, you add whatever pluses you have. If it's a melee plus, you add your melee plus to that. If it's a magic weapon, you add your magic weapon plus to that. You put that all together and you roll your dice and you add it, and then all of that gets doubled. Man, that just really makes those D4 for hit points worthwhile for that thief when you get to pull this off, right? So this is a really, really cool thing. It says the sneak attack can be performed with any melee, but not missile weapon, or may be performed barehanded, in which case subduing damage is done. See the encounter section for details. Also, the sneak attack can be performed with the flat of the blade, quote unquote. The bonuses and penalties cancel out, so the attack has a +0 attack bonus and does normal damage. The damage done in this case is subduing damage. And the reason why they're talking about the canceling out is because if you try to hit anyone just to subdue them, you have a -4 on the attack roll. But because the thief gets the +4 from behind, it cancels that out. So there's no bonus and no penalty. So it's just a +0. And then you're doing subdual damage. Okay. So I really like how that they've set up the thief here in the book. And I really just want to say this. The way in which this reflects on the way we used to play in the old school game, man, it just, for me, I can really feel like the ability for the fluid descriptions on the parts of the players and the fluid descriptions on the parts of the game master to just make this game come alive in such a way that I don't need 658 pages of rules and descriptive text to try to figure out what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and how I'm going to do it. We just, as a community at the table together, we just decide to do some things. We're going with the story, and the GM is going with us along with that story and is making rulings over rules, as I've said in past videos. And I just really like that about BFRPG. I think I might go ahead and stop here at this point, and then we'll come back on another video and progress further on into the book. But if you are liking these videos and you're finding these videos to be something that is entertaining, has some value for you, has some creative punch for you, those types of things, put a comment down below, hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you'll be notified. Again, as I said in the beginning. And again, thanks for everybody that's subscribed. Please pass this channel on to all of your friends and family. It will always be G-rated. Again, just thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you've enjoyed this read through of this content so far. And then once we get through BFRPG, then we'll talk about where we're going to go from there. But again, I appreciate you guys, and hope that you guys really, really enjoy your games together, enjoy your time together. COVID has kind of made it for a difficult time and also a unique time at the same time, and I'm very glad for that, in that sense that it has driven people to gaming and driven people back in time to this old school type of gaming. I think in many, many ways and it's a great thing. So encourage you that, as I always say at the end of all of my videos, hey, enjoy your gaming, and may all your rolls be nat 20s. Take care.